Okay, and our newspaper reviewer, Chukwudi Obaja, is in the studio and set to do what he knows to do best.
Hello, Victor. How are you?
I'm well, good morning.
You're crisp this morning, like something from the mint.
Thank you.
No wonder somebody said your shoes were dazzling his gaze, you know. Debola, how are you?
I'm good.
Always the gentleman. I wish I could be like you 5 minutes of the day at least. Not this hyperactivity. Gentlemen, I'm glad to be here.
Jukes the parrot.
I think we need to change that. We need to.
Just the parrot.
Victor, let's kickstart today.
Well, with the Nigerian pilot here first before me, Edo CJ reviews panel probing deputy governor substitutes 2 members. That story is on page 6 of the Nigerian pilot. FG splashes millions of naira on innovative civil servants. That's on page 9. The screaming headline here, banditry. FG invites Gumi for interrogation. 4 riders says controversial Islamic cleric is not above the law. That invitation follows his statements on abduction of 280 pupils, teachers in Kaduna. Insists that no ransom was paid for release of abducted Kuriga students. And finally, Gumi had offered to negotiate with terrorists responsible for Kaduna abduction. That major story is on the page 4. And then Zakat distribution claims 7 lives in Bauchi State. That's on page 5. And the last line of at the bottom page of the Nigerian pilot, FG files criminal charges against Binance. That's on page 7. Pre-retirement summit, 500 prospective retirees to benefit from skills. Page 6. NSCDC boss decries acts of vandalism, destruction of public utilities. Page 5. Defection looms as El Rufai, APC, PDP chieftains meet with SDP leaders. That one is on page 10. And CBN adjusts forex sales to BDC operators. That story is on page 4. And finally, Federal Executive Council okays 1.267 trillion naira for 28 roads, bridges. If you want more on that story, you find it on page 7. And next is the Daily Trust, which leads with the headline, 6.8 million naira Hajj fare intending pilgrims demand refund. With 2 riders, stakeholders seek government intervention. Don't take loan to top up, ex-NACON commissioner. That's on page 4. And then the picture story just below this story, that story talks about Governor Basani of Kaduna State with the rescued Kuriga students at the government house in Kaduna on Monday. 44-year-old opposition candidate wins Senegal presidential election. That's on page 10 and below the masthead. War on Gaza, U.S. turns back on Israel at UN Security Council. And then Binance executive fled Nigeria with smuggled passports. That's according to the NSA, page 19. Then 6 of 137 rescued Kaduna students hospitalized. Teacher dies. And then with the riders, government yet to reunite freed children with families. FG denies ransom payment and no food for us in the bush. That's according to the students, page 6. Debola?
Okay, I have the Punch newspapers with me, and above the nameplate, federal government deduct 415 billion naira state allocations for debt servicing. The story can be found on page 21. CBN directs BDCs to sell dollar at 1,269 naira. The story, the details can be found on page 23. The federal government threatens Gumi with arrest, condemns reckless statement. More you can find the story on page 20. And Ondo Speaker, 15 lawmakers endorse Ayedatiwa's governorship ambition. The story can be found on page 8. And the major headlines: the Binance chief, federal government contacts Interpol, soldiers held over detainees escape. Fleeing crypto guru holds British Kenyan nationalities, escaped via Middle East airliner, NSA offers. Escape shocks security agencies, detained soldiers risk disciplinary action, Binance support probe. The story can be found on page 2. We have Kaduna host, freed pupils, 28 kidnapped in fresh attack. The details can be gotten on page 20. And the below we have Abuja farmers orders lost 12 billion naira to ginger disease, federal government. The story is on page 21. Niger man held for alleged killing of brother over property. The details on page 5. Nigerians may spend over 725 billion on 2024 Hajj. That story can be found on page 9. Chooks, it's over to you.
Yeah, Demola, I'm just going through to see news that affects the people. Abuja farmers, others lost 12 billion naira to ginger disease. That's coming from the federal government.
Yeah.
That is not good news for farmers.
That's why, I mean, ginger has been so expensive in the market.
That's it.
The quantity that I used to buy for 500, I went to the market the other time and they were telling me, look, this thing is now 2,000 naira. It's even difficult. It's so scarce.
Yes.
I
to
hear
even get it.
I hear in Mudu it's about 4,000 naira.
That is because the amount getting into the markets has been highly reduced by this,
The disease.
the disease that
rules of some demand and supply.
The farms.
yes, these things will happen in agriculture from time to time. You might even see diseases that were not known prior to the time. It's mutation of the things that cause some of these diseases and all that. So what we have to do is to be proactive in terms of our research into agriculture and how much to help the farmer. That's a very important thing to consider. I was saying just the other day that my simple calculation, I'm not expert in these matters, but my simple calculation is that if you really want to make quick cash for a country, it's the agriculture of that country you actually invest a lot of money into. Because the harvest time is relatively short for certain things. I keep telling people that the reason farmers in these parts, Abuja, into the north and all that, seem to be richer than farmers in the south is that farmers in the south will be there with the cassava that requires at least 10 months, 11 months. The yam that requires at least 8 months. While people plant groundnuts here, harvest in 3 months. Plant maize, harvest in 3 months. Plant potato, harvest in 3 months. Plant groundnuts and beans, harvest in 3.5 months. So these are the things. So you study the geography of a place, know what kind of input to help them make.
And I think we need to do a lot concerning the storage facilities. When we have the storage facilities in place, when we have issues like this, the one that has stored will just bring them out to augment the.
How do we say?
That is the challenge that we have in this country is storage.
I know one YAP government in primary 4. As in 1964, we were reading about government's plans to give storage facilities to farmers. About 7 months to my 67th birthday, we are still hoping that the farmers will have access to storage. So it doesn't quite make sense. All those perishable products we see, tomato particularly, can actually be, but without steady electricity, how do you do that? So it's more of an infrastructure thing, you understand? But you see, any time I see anything concerning farming, agriculture, my heart lights up, and I pray that farmers will get a better deal. They are getting better prices now. When I was in the village farming then, that's in Iseluk, apart from the fact that my cassava would rot away after some time, in the ground there, we were not getting good prices. So I'm happy that farmers are getting good prices. But while they jubilate, they go to buy other things, they lose that money because the inflation is an all-round thing. You understand?
Reaction.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Any wind that blows no one good.
The escape of the binary binary finance man, it's one of those things that happen and you say, hey, what sort of impression are we trying to create in the world? Fine. The holy month of Ramadan is something that you should use to show love and understanding to adherents of the faith and all that. But that he was allowed to go and pray. From there, certain things started happening, for crying out loud. Wasn't there, weren't there people in the environment security people who were supposed to monitor him and all that? And the excuse that he carries multiple passports and all that. No, there are things you don't say.
Do you just allow him to just go alone to pray?
That is the point we're making.
Don't we have security?
He could pray where he was,
yes,
where he was being held.
They will just go with him. They all pray
pray where he
together
was being
and they
held.
just usher him back into
And
the
we are
prison.
so eloquent about his escaping on a Middle East airliner, escape shock security agencies, for crying out loud. You are supposed to be preemptive, not reactive. Why should it shock you? We were talking about the mind of Mr. J.G. Reader the other time. One slim book I read way back in time. They asked Mr. Reader, how is it so easy for you to catch criminals? He said, to catch them, I begin to think like them. To catch a thief, you begin to think like a thief. So our security people should not feed us stories that don't make sense.
Did he escape same day
should be more
as
proactive,
yes.
Did he leave the country same day as he escaped? Because if he did, you couldn't have. That means the flight was prearranged.
That's it.
So this it's not very difficult to
So you begin
connect
to
the
think
dots.
complicity somewhere and all that. Let's not go speculating over these things. Let them try to up their game, as we would always say here. Very important.
See, the CBN has directed the BDCs to sell dollar at 1,200. I think this.
Well, yes, but that begins to go against the flotation of the flotation which the federal government did, because it would seem that some regulation is coming in again. But government knows best. You put a policy on the ground. You see the implementation of it.
Regulation. Because if you leave it only to the market forces, see what happened.
That's
when it was left for just market forces.
That's exactly what I was saying.
It went straight down to 2,000.
Exactly.
I mean, that was ridiculous.
That's exactly what I was saying. You put policy on the ground. You monitor the implementation. Where you need to tinker with a few things, be flexible. If you want to enjoy your life, be flexible. I talked about the happy medium the other time. Don't be extremist. Neither should you be lukewarm over certain things, So it's a good thing if that's what the experts think it is. When it comes to finance, Chukwudi shuts his mouth so that Demola does not say the parrot is treading unknown territory.
And then the 44-year-old opposition candidate wins the Senegal presidential election.
Good news for Africa. First of all, that man is in opposition. That's it. So, when people say that incumbency is a big factor, well, it is, particularly in Africa. It is. But for us to have a situation where a 44-year-old person scales through all the hurdles, incumbents would, because the president definitely had his, it is good news for Africa. Democracy has to be given a chance. I don't like it when a man imposes himself on me. I don't like it. And it's not because I'm a journalist. It's just that free choice. When people starve you, you'll feel bad. When people hurt you physically, you'll feel bad. But when people take your right away, you feel awful. So we like the fact that people have been allowed to exercise their franchise, and it has produced their chosen candidate. Let Africa learn from this.
Just like we had in 2014, right?
Yeah.
There the opposition won.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In this country as well, we
Sure.
had such.
And you know, people were saying, I remember, you know, that transition from the Goodluck Jonathan administration to the Buhari administration. Actually, the Americans had to step out at a point because they said they were beginning to feel that the incumbents wanted to do something about and they came out there, the foreign ministers came out and said Nigeria should not do what we think they are planning over. And we want to salute the broad-mindedness of the president then over the handover.
All right.
Africa has to keep
All right,
learning from
sure.
such.
We'll leave it at that.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, gentlemen.
For the newspaper review this morning. We'll
Thank
take a
you.
break now.